Okay, everybody, welcome to the fifth in our little interview sessions where we've called it Mickleover Meets. And today I've got not just Mickleover Golf Club royalty, but golf royalty. I'm sure he's probably going to be a bit embarrassed when I'm just going to go through before I actually just cut to Clive. We've got Clive Ibbotson here, who's been a member of the golf club. And I've got a few bits written down here since 1953. He's been a past Mickleover captain, vice president, twice Derbyshire County captain, Derbyshire president, the secretary of Derbyshire and the assistant secretary, the Midland regional captain. He's won the club championship 22 times. That's a scratch knockout, 22 times. He's won the vice president scratch cup, which is 36 holes, 20 times and 18 out of 19 years. Wow. The Salt Cup twice, the Sidney Bradley Cup once, the Clover Cup once, the Mickleover Cup 3 times, the Bourne Cup once, Captain's Day once, and has held a handicap of 6, which he currently has for the last 60 years. Welcome, Clive Ibbotson.
Thank you, Tim.
Hi, Clive. You all right?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
What about that for a resume?
Yeah, a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I've known you since came as the assistant in 1988 with Steve Hadfield, and just going back when I was growing up and getting into golf and buying the Derby Evening Telegraph in the early 80s. I used to look through the sport, and of course there'd be some golf things in there, and there'd be the usual county stuff in there. I didn't know anything really about golf, but I just started playing in 1982, believe it or not. And I always remember seeing your name because it was a unique name. It wasn't a name that was necessarily, you know, it wasn't a Smith or a Jones, and that name stuck with me. I've never told you this, and I always thought that guy must be. He's always in every week. Remember at Mickleover? I didn't know Mickleover Golf Club existed at the time. I lived in Derby, but got no idea. I'd never been to it. And I just remember seeing your name all the time in the county fixtures, the county things. So what an amazing resume that was, and well done.
Thank you.
Well done. So I think the first question I'd like to ask you, I'm sure the viewers want to know, is how and why you started playing golf, really.
Well, I suppose I started because my father played golf. He joined after the war, and because our next door neighbour played golf, but he moved away. I mean, I did know them quite well, but not at that age. They moved away up to Lancashire, and he went to play at Formby. But my dad joined. I'm not sure what year, but I joined in '53, and my mother had started playing then as well. So it was really just my father through my father. Just
a family affair. And this was. And did you live in Mickleover at the time?
No, I lived in Littleover, Hillsway, where the high school is.
Yeah.
Easy walking distance to the golf club. Summer holidays, I used to play at least 3 rounds a day because there's no practice area, of course, and nobody else played on the golf course really because people were all at work in those days. So there wasn't a lot of seniors golf.
No.
So it was sort of millionaires golf at the time.
Wow. So your first set of clubs, what were they? Do you remember?
Hickories.
Were they? What, hand-me-down hickories or purchased hickories?
Sorry?
Hand-me-down hickories, like from somebody else, like second-hand.
Yeah. Well, they had to cut them down, of course, because I was only 10. So they weren't cutting down steel-shafted clubs in those days. So I had a few hickories, that was all. I still got my original hickory putter. It was a Ben Sayers block one. It's in 2 pieces in the garage, actually, because it's spliced. And it needs rebinding, the head and the shaft.
That binding, to anybody out there, they won't understand what binding is. I started off doing binding and whipping and things like that. And we used to have wooden woods. I mean, you know, modern day, now we're just clicking shafts in now.
Used to repolish my own clubs as well, the woods.
Did you? Wow. Yeah. So back in the days when you joined in 1953, and even just before you joined, you started playing. If I'm not mistaken, would Horace be the pro then? Horace Lester?
Yeah, he'd taken over from his brother Eric.
Okay.
Because Eric was... Yeah, well, Eric, of course, won the first £1,000 first prize in pro golf in this country.
British Pro Golf, he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
In fact, I was looking at that. So for anybody out there, we had a pro here for about 40 years called Horace Lester, who was again larger than life character. I knew him towards the end of his reign and got really quite well with him. It was an acquired taste. But his brother, I'm right in saying, Clive, Eric, and there's a few brothers because they all caddied and they were all pros from Birmingham.
There were about 4 brothers actually.
Yeah, there was, wasn't there? And Eric went on to play. He finished top 10 in 2 Open Championships in the 50s. I think one of them was 1955 to Peter Thompson. So he was quite well known. And as you quite rightly say, he won the first £1,000 prize in professional British golf. And he was the former pro at Mickleover, wasn't he, Eric?
He was, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, bit of history there as we get towards the centenary. So you started off obviously going down, and did you have a few lessons off Horace?
I had a few, yeah. He used to, because he was the pro greenkeeper. Yeah. And I mean, he'd be out cutting the fairways and he'd just drop off his tractor and give us a few tips on his way around. Sometimes he didn't even bother stopping the tractor. He'd just hop off, tell us something and hop back on again.
Brilliant.
I mean, he was quite a character. I tell you what, he was one of the best strikers of a golf ball I think I've ever seen. I do remember him on the old putting green, knocking drivers off the putting green down the old 18th, over the fence, off the deck with his driver, and only bruising the turf.
Yeah, I mean, I had the pleasure of playing with him a number of times when he was retired at Mickleover in my early days. Even then, I mean, unbelievable. A character, and what a player. And again, a guy that's got another phenomenal playing resume in Derbyshire for the things he won, the Derbyshire Pros, the Derbyshire Open. I mean, people that look back into the 60s and the 50s and the 70s, he was always up there, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he couldn't putt.
No.
I mean, I played with him. The year I was captain, he retired. And we had a pro-am for him. And we went down the first, and he knocked his to about 4 feet, and I knocked mine to about 10. And he said to me, "I'll lag up and you go for it." And that really summed up his attitude to putting, really. It was if he could get around in 36 putts, he'd done well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what the next question I was going to ask you was how quickly you got to single figures, but having had the discussion before we came on air, we worked out basically between 17 and 18. So it took you 6 or 7 years of playing regular, really, and then kind of getting your handicap down.
Yeah, well, I mean, I won my first competition in '56. I looked this up actually because I've still got the tankard, and that was a foursomes with a chap called Jack Webster, who was he's a pal of my father's, really. He was I think he was 7 handicap, and I was 24, and we did a 76, gross 60 and a half net in a straight foursome.
Wow. But that went down well.
I bet it did. I don't remember too much about it, to be honest, but...
You've still got the tankard?
I've still got the tankard. In fact, Jack got his engraved and gave it to me as well. So I've got them both.
I love that. I love the fact that you've got all those things. That's fantastic. So that was 1956. So then you started to get recognised, really, I suppose, by the county, and you started to kind of get involved in county golf, which you became, late teens?
Yeah, I won the Derbyshire Boys the year I was 18.
Yeah.
You had to be under 18 on the 1st of January. Well, that was my last year. And that would be 61.
I think that picture's still by the snooker table, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And then the following year, I got into the second team. And the year after that, I got into the first team.
So it's first team since 1963. Wow.
Yeah, stayed there
well, not long ago.
A long time.
So going back to, obviously you joined in 53. So who would be at the golf club now that you remember from being back with you? Obviously not necessarily back to 53 because you're the longest serving playing member. There's a couple of people that joined just before 53 that are still around, but they're not playing members anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Bradley
Yeah.
was a member, and Tony Bracegirdle was a member.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
Would be Graham Guest?
I don't know when Graham joined, but it was sometime in the 60s, I would think. I'd be guessing.
Yeah, yeah. So then he was playing all this golf, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but I'm sure it came to the golf club, is that the A38 came through the golf club, because you talked a minute ago about, Horace hitting balls off the old green around the old 18th, which to me even, I've got obviously no recollection of the location of that. I know it's houses probably now, down on Briarfield Way. So the A38 came through. So was that a shock to the golf club?
Well, I don't know whether it was a shock. We got plenty of notice, relatively.
Yeah.
Because they built the new clubhouse. They had the new clubhouse built because that was going to be the other side of the A38. Yeah. And we got some extra land from the Salts.
Yeah.
And got compensation to redo the golf course and to have a similar clubhouse. But obviously it was a wooden clubhouse before.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think some of the money that was actually earmarked for the golf course development got spent building the clubhouse, building a brick clubhouse.
Okay. But there's an element of the current course. There's quite a large element that's called we played, but in different ways, didn't we? Yeah,
I mean, it appeared to go through a corner of the golf course, but in actual fact, when you thought about it, the holes we lost were the first completely, second tee, third green, fourth tee, and the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. Well, we lost half the eighth, the ninth, the 10th, half the 10th, 11 was okay, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then we lost 16th green, 17th and 18th.
Right, wow.
So we lost quite a lot in that quite big corner.
Yeah. And I know, looking back at some photographs that as we prepare for the centenary to like the mid-70s, that people have brought in, I mean, all the trees looking like that big, like little twigs, whereas now, they've grown, quite a lot. And of course, the course has become quite tight, hasn't it? Whereas back in the early days, it wasn't so tight, was it? I mean, the current course, it wasn't so tight.
No, I mean, the trees were small. I mean, 18th, I could knock it over the trees and onto the 18th green. Yeah. Which is not easy to do then.
No. That's the first I saw that was DJ Russell did it twice in a day in the about 20 years ago. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So as you started obviously playing more county golf, and and how many times do you reckon you played for the county first team, by the way?
Well, I think about 215.
Okay. 215.
Not counting ladies matches or pros matches.
It's just an incredible number. You like the Peter Shilton of the football. Golf, should I say? So obviously, as you started to get towards being a county player, well known in the area, in the Midlands of Derbyshire, and of course, I assume you was getting down to what, scratch handicap at that point? Is that the lowest you got to?
I got to scratch in 67.
Okay. And back in the days then, it was the old system. So again, that some of the people that haven't played long, it was a totally different way of getting your handicap down. And if you were a scratch golfer, I mean, there's loads of scratch golfers these days in the country, and there's obviously loads of plus handicappers. Back then, there wasn't many scratch golfers, was there?
No, I think there were 78 scratch golfers in the country in those days, in 67.
Wow.
And there was a handful of plus. I mean, you virtually had to be invited to be plus. You had to be a Walker Cup player to play off plus in those days. And I mean, I think there was quite a difference between a lot of the scratch handicappers and plus players.
Yes.
Because the Walker Cup players were they're a slightly different level, certainly to me anyway.
And they're just that bit next level, like you say. And of course, like you say, they have to be invited. So, did you ever think of turning professional? Assistant?
Well, no, not seriously, because I used to go up to Jack Jacobs at Lindrick for coaching with Derbyshire, and I'd started work at the infirmary by then, and we went up, and apparently I found out later that he'd actually approached my father at some stage to see if I would be interested in going as his assistant or one of his assistants. But I didn't get to know about that till quite a few years later.
The ship had sailed.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably I've enjoyed my amateur golf so much, it can make a lot of difference to me. There wasn't any money in it anyway in those days, to be brutally honest.
Now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more than there was then.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So obviously, as you started playing a bit off the county, and again, we've talked about this before, but you started playing some exhibition matches with and you know, when courses had celebrations, centenarians, 50th anniversaries, openings, and I know a story that you told me that you got invited to play at Ormond Fields with the obviously incredible Douglas Bader, who had 2 artificial legs and was a keen golfer. You watched the film, but you actually played 18 holes with him.
Yeah. Don't remember too much about it, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, yeah.
I was so engrossed with trying to concentrate on playing golf that you don't get too involved with everything. But I mean, he was certainly a character, and he wasn't short on confidence.
Well, I think no, he'd done all right, hadn't he?
And I do know he got his golfing legs, because he used to have one leg shorter than the other.
Okay.
Quite whether he'd get away with it in this day and age, I don't know.
His golfing leg.
So every shot was an uphill shot.
Wow, I love it. That's amazing. So the right leg would be a bit shorter than the left.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. And who else was that? So it was you and Douglas Bader, and who else?
There was John Thomas from Chesterfield, and Curtis Cook player, Susan. I think it was Susan Armitage.
And this was to open Ormond Fields, was it? It was the opening of Ormond Fields.
Yeah, it coincided with the opening, but it was for I think it was for the Guide Dogs, the charity.
Oh, right, okay. And then another one we spoke about at Chevin, I think it was the 50th anniversary. You played with, again, Tommy Horton was one of the guys that you played in an exhibition match. And he was a former Ryder Cup player. He's actually not long died, last year, 18 months.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, pro at Royal Jersey for a number of years, senior tour player, Ryder Cup player, very famous guy. He used to wear the little pork pie hat, didn't he, type of thing when he played. Like Trilby type hat, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, we played with Paul Baxter, and we played against him and a bloke called Mike Ingham, who was reputedly the longest driver on the tour at that time. And I remember saying to Paul, I'd love to get one past him. And we were going down the 12th, and there's a bunker on the right-hand side about 30 or 40 yards short of the green. And I knocked it within a few yards of that, and I was about a pace past him.
Brilliant. You've remembered, haven't you? 1969, I think you told me that was.
69,
50 years, 51 years, should have said. You remembered knocking it past him. And that was, of course, on the British tour, which before it became the European tour. Yeah, fantastic. That is. Wow. And then you did, and did you say you played at Pastures when that opened?
Yeah, that was quite interesting. I played with Horace, and again, Paul Baxter, and Max Faulkner. I can't remember a lot of his stories, but you know, he told us about his caddy and all sorts of things, and how the caddies used to behave in those days.
Yeah, because Max Faulkner was obviously famous. I think he won in '53 the Open, but of course he was Brian Barnes' father-in-law, who recently passed away as well in the last year. So there's obviously a big golf connection with his family, and that's amazing. So you've played some really famous people. Any other ones that you can throw into the mix over the years?
But I've played in Well, I played with Ian Woosnam when we had a pro-am at Mickleover.
Clever Pro-Am, 1989.
Was that 89? Yeah.
89, I played in it, and people still don't quite get the fact he was on the verge of being world number one. He was just shy of winning the Masters. Obviously, 18 months later, whenever it was, he played in 4 Ryder Cups. He played in the Mickleover Pro-Am, and there's literally no news stories on it anywhere on the internet. It's incredible.
Really?
It's like Dustin Johnson tipping up to play now.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
You just can't believe it, can you?
Yeah.
And how was that?
I played against a lot of the top amateurs and got
Yeah.
beaten by them, of course.
Yeah.
I played Lee Westwood in one of his first county matches for Notts at
Okay.
Kedleston. Had a moral victory, I think. Only lost 2-1.
Brilliant. So he was a young buck up and coming then, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he was a good golfer. You could tell he was going to be.
Yeah. Any others that you played that have gone on to be good pros over the years in the county matches?
Played him twice at Chesterfield. John Flanders and myself beat him and Martin Foster in the morning in the foursomes. And I finished all square with Howard Clark in the afternoon in the singles. Somehow managed to get a 34 at the last and halve it with him. He knocked it on with a better drive than a fine line, and I hit 2 woods.
Did you really?
So,
And he went on to play about 4 or 5 Ryder Cups, didn't he?
he did, yeah.
And that's the beauty about playing the county golf. I remember Lee, Lee Mason, who works for us, obviously, playing obviously beating Danny Willett. I know that the careers have gone in totally opposite directions as far as golf's concerned, but I mean that with the utmost respect to Lee. But of course, Danny Willett went on and wins the Masters. I mean, so you've been in a similar position and for a much longer period of playing many more county matches. There may have been a few people that you played that you didn't even remember, and then they've gone on and actually done. You know what? Actually, he's become a tour pro, because the Midlands did turn a few out over the last 30, 40 years, didn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I played against Jeff Marks quite a bit, who played for Staffordshire. And when I started off, I had a double-handed grip.
Okay.
And I don't know what I was playing in, but I was standing on the first tee at Cavendish, I remember, and a chap called George Henriques, who was a past president, I think, of England at that time, he was watching them go, and he didn't know it was my father he was talking to, and he said, well, I quite like the swing, but he'll get nowhere with that grip. So
changed it.
But of course, I mean, my dad then works hard to get me changing my grip to the overlap.
Yeah.
And first time I played top for Derbyshire was against Staffordshire at Chevin. First time I played Jeff Marks. And what sort of a grip's he got? A double-handed grip. I thought, well, here's a Walker Cup player. I struggled to change my grip.
Yeah. And of course, a couple of the names that you've mentioned in exhibition matches, the photographs are still on the wall in Mickleover, 1974. Yourself, Trevor Homer, Jeff Marks and Paul Baxter, all notable amateur golfers of the day. I think Trevor Homer and Vic Marks were Walker Cup players. Paul Baxter went on to become England golf president. Is that right? And was it Chevy?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he played for England as well, Paul.
Did he? Wow.
I'm not sure. Not certain. I think he did.
And those pictures are still on the wall, so anybody that's watching, go and have a look at those ones where the course opened, and you'll see the Clive being one of them. And they were really notable amateur golfers at the time. So just going back to what Mickleover Golf Club's probably meant to you over the years. I mean, you've been I know when the road went through, I think I think you joined Chevin as well. I think you won the Cup Championship there, actually. I've seen your name on the wall there, actually, for a few years. And obviously you came back, because Mickleover went to just like 9 holes for a period, didn't it?
Yeah. We were on 9 holes for at least 2 years. We had a captain that did 2 years. That was Bill Wright.
Bill Wright, yeah.
That's Lorraine Hopwell's dad.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I only found that out recently. Never knew that. So what's Mickleover meant to you over the years? I mean, you've got such a long-standing membership and length of service.
Well, it's a place you always come back to, isn't it? Got a lot of. I mean, I know fewer members these days, obviously, because I don't play as much. But it's still, Mickleover is where I went to play the golf, and it'll always remain in my heart, really.
Yeah.
I'll always stay a member, come what may.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I also admit there's longer golf courses, this, that, and the other, but I've always liked the feel of it, and I've always thought that when you get the greens nice and playable, because they're not big, so when you get them nice and playable, and you don't just blast it off the tee, which everybody wants to do, then it's a pleasant place to obviously to play your golf, and personally, I just love it like that. So, holes in one. How many holes in one you had?
5.
Any at Mickleover?
1.
Okay. Is that
I've never had one on the old course.
Okay, so which hole have you had it on?
13th.
Ooh, proper one that is.
And that was a fluke.
Was it?
I hit the flag halfway up. And saw it rattle the way we got up there. It was in the hole. So, pure luck. In fact, Neil had a hole in one at Mickleover before me.
Did he? Neil, your son, who obviously was a member for a number of years as well, yeah.
He had a hole in one on the 6th before I had mine on the 13th.
Wow.
And yeah, on the old course, when you think back, the old course had got 6 par 3s on it.
You didn't have one?
And I didn't have one at all.
So where are the other 4?
First one was the second at Burton.
Yeah.
I was a junior then when I did that. The 10th at Matlock.
Yeah.
The 8th at Walton Park in a county match.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I had the 13th at Cavendish.
Did you? Wow, that's a good one. It's a tough par 3, that is.
Yeah.
Well, green, isn't it?
Yeah, you had no idea you'd done it.
No, you've no idea you've done it, no.
We were looking for the ball for ages.
Yeah. I've had 5 and I've never seen one go in. I mean, the other
I've
4,
never seen it. The only one I could have seen go in was the 10th at Matlock. That was the year I was playing with, it was a club match against Matlock. I was playing with Les Davis, he was the captain. And it was straight into the sun.
Okay.
So we never saw a thing. And we got up there and there was a ball about 2 inches from the hole. Les went over, picked the ball up and said, "Oh, that's mine." Then put his hand in the hole, picked out another ball and said, "And that's yours."
Wow, 2 in a 1.
The 2 in a 1 on the same hole.
I love it. Love stories like that. My friend's a pro down at Hillingdon. He was from Craythorne, so he's from Burton. Phil Smith, good amateur, and he was playing a pro captain game about 15 years ago. And his captain went first holding one, and then Phil went holding one on the same hole, which was almost what you did there. I remember that getting the national press. Yeah, followed him in. Unbelievable stuff. Wow. And just looking back at some of the things you won, what's probably the most notable victory you had, and also what's the best score you've had around current Mickleover? Because I mean, course records are they move about as courses change, and you make a change to the course. But what's your best score at Mickleover?
64.
64.
And several of them on the old course, the 9-hole course, and the new course. I've never done better than 64 in a competition. In a medal.
No, I haven't either. That's my lowest ever. And out of those 22 club championship victories, which you probably thought, well, I've got a few on there, and because obviously the honours boards now being on the stairway, people the old honours they don't see how many times, and of course your dad's on there, so there's a difference. CF Ibbotson is your father, Cyril, and obviously your CRJ. So after those 22 club championship victories, which are match play, 36-hole match play, any memorable games and finals that you had there?
Gosh, that's a difficult one. Had quite a few with Arthur Hansen.
Yeah.
Some should have lost and finished up winning.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been against Arthur a couple of times. I've been sort of 2 down and 3 to play, or 4 down and 5 to play, and somehow gone through. But no, I think I do remember one of the ones I lost to my dad.
You played your dad in the final.
first time my dad won it, I think he played me in the final, and he beat me 4-3. And I then played him the next year in the final. I mean, he putted me to death in the first time. So this next time, I just completely switched off, and we finished on the 10th green in the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Big came up to me and said, "How could you do that to your dad?" I said, "Well, I had to, didn't I? Because I couldn't let him back in the game."
That's brilliant.
And he wouldn't have liked me to anyway.
No, of course not. No, you've got to keep going, haven't you? You've got to keep going.
Yeah.
And of course, that's that Vice President Scratch Cup, which is also 36 holes, isn't it? It is 36 holes. Yeah, in a day. So in 19 years, I mean, you won 20 overall, but 18 in 19 years. So I think you had, I think somebody, and it might have been Les Davis from memory, broke your succession there. Somebody did win it one year. Obviously, in between, I can't remember what the year was. I've not. Roger Angst sent me through the details last night. So I had to take a photograph of them. But yeah, somebody broke your run there, which was obviously quite annoying, and you obviously didn't even realise it.
No, I know Les beat me in the club champion, the knockout one year.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Because the one and only time he ever got in the 5th green in 2 was against me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
2 bits, that was. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, Les wasn't the longest of hitters, but he somehow got it on in 2.
Yeah.
That's
perfect for Mickleover, though, that was. You know, you don't need to be long. That just shows you, you know, that was a real steady play and a real good competitor, wasn't he? But you didn't need to be long.
Yeah.
Just keep it in play, really.
He never,
so
forgave me,
then.
He never forgave me for putting the ditch in across the 7th.
I know.
Mind you, I can see where it's coming from these days.
It's bit you. It's come back to bite you.
Yeah.
So nowadays, what you're doing as far as golf's concerned, obviously I know you're still there at Mickleover, but you know, you're not really. Are you playing as much as you want to, or you just playing a few holes?
I'm playing just about as much as I want to, yeah. Apart from these days, of course. But
yes, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to play all the time. I mean, it wasn't when it was so consuming when I was younger that I've played enough golf really to don't want to get too wound up about it.
You was almost full time and doing that round the job, weren't you? Which was,
Oh yeah.
Young family. It would have been really difficult.
Yeah.
How many golf courses do you think you've played? Have you ever kept I think I've done 240 different golf courses. You must have done one.
Not a clue, but I do remember occasionally when they have these top 100 courses in England, I think I played about 30 of them, which I suppose isn't bad. I'm not really trying.
That's the beauty, isn't it? That's the beauty about golf, is that we can all go and have a game at, where the Open's been and where the Ryder Cup's been, totally different to other sports. I mean, I know you've got to pay your green fee and make the arrangements and things like that, but, where you see the Birkdales, the Lythams, the Wentworths and all the top places on the TV, it's like, oh, I played it. And that's where golf is quite unique as a sport.
Yeah. I remember playing at Al Soler near Valencia, and we didn't go off the back tees, anywhere near the back tees. And it was the course that Bernd Langer went around in '63, off the back tees. And God knows how he ever did that. You look at it and you think there's no way in a million years, even off the front tees, I could go around with
that. I know. It's incredible. You get a great insight into, the professional golf. And I know that, like you say, they're playing a lot on a longer course on back tees, but it's just absolutely incredible. Golf courses obviously are getting longer. And I know we've done some course ratings together for Derbyshire. I've helped you out and doing some of the assessments and things like that. And when you start going to some of these, like Keviston, which off that back tee, it's miles, isn't it now?
Yeah. I don't know where some of their black tees are.
I think they're in Duffield. Brilliant. Right. Okay. Well, that's an amazing golfing life, Clive. I mean, again, an amazing resume. Captain at Mickleover in '81, and twice Derbyshire captain, which is definitely no mean feat. And a president, but Midlands captain. I mean, it's just incredible. But the stat I just love is the fact that, you know, for 60 years or so, you've been 6 or below. I mean, that's just incredible golf over that time. You know, and you know, you're still a fierce competitor now. I mean, I played with you quite recently over in Spain on one of the trips, and you know, every now and again, and you know, it's always a pleasure to play with you. And I think there'll be a number of members that you've known for a long time over the years that, you know, just play with Clive. But I think some of the new ones, if they get a chance to put the name down on the start sheet when we start playing competitions again, and hopefully it's not a 2-ball, because I know it's the bane of your life when it's in the middle of 3 balls. But people should get to play with you, because it's just a tremendous experience to see you. You know, you still perform. You're just a fierce competitor, and you know, fabulous servant to Mickleover as far as I'm concerned. In my time, they've been absolutely brilliant for me. So well done.
Thank you very much.
I'm impressed. So everybody, that's the end of today's interview. I don't know who I'm doing next, but I'm going to do one next week. So we'll announce it obviously on the social channels. But I've enjoyed meeting Clive today. Again, king of golf as far as Mickleover is concerned. And we'll see you soon. Thanks everybody. Bye.